We have so many great speakers in the Nonprofit Productivity Summit, and we have another one for you today, and that's Rebecca Britt. She is a really gifted communicator. She's somebody who actually has a specialty in measuring impact and assessment. And I can tell you, running a nonprofit organization, that is often one of the things that we neglect or we feel annoyed by. Like, why do I have to measure impact? Well, because benefactors and donors and funders, they want to see that, or else they're not going to come alongside us. So she has an incredible story, an incredible nonprofit, and her background is just so perfect for the summit. So Rebecca, I just want to say welcome. And what else would you like to add to that introduction?
Oh, you did so well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today. And I love, on top of nonprofit development and evaluation, productivity and getting focused is like near and dear to my heart. So I'm so excited to be here.
So give us a little bit of your origin story and the origin story of Cthulhu. It's so unique, and give us a sense of how you got into that particular aspect of nonprofit leadership.
Yeah, so I started a nonprofit, and my nonprofit was super niche. It was actually matching up foster and adopted kids with community mentors and equine assisted learning. So horses, mentors, and kids. And I had no clue how to start a nonprofit. I was just a social worker and a horse trainer that knew that I wanted to do this thing. And so I had a lot of heartache, and a lot of headache trying to do that. And I learned a lot in that journey. And I developed my model into one because, you know what, if you put community mentors and kids with trauma and horses together, you realize real quick how much structure you need to have in place for that to be effective for everyone. So it became a very structured model, and I presented it and developed it into a curriculum that other equine facilities could implement at their farms. So we have 19 locations today. And as I worked with all of those equine facilities, helping them run a stable moments model, what I found was they didn't need as much help running a stable moments. They needed a lot more help running a nonprofit. And I've been in the nonprofit sector just since college, just working as a social worker and then working for individual or private nonprofits. And I just realized, like, everybody kind of has the same pain points. But one thing I was always asked with the Stable Moments program was, is this evidence-based? Is this evidence-based? Rebecca, is this evidence-based? How do you know what you're doing? Are you actually doing what you claim? And I was frustrated. I was like, oh, where's the room for innovation? No, it's not yet, because it's a new idea. But I couldn't just keep being frustrated. I had to figure out, how do you make it evidence-based? So that is what led me to go back and get my master's in program evaluation, so that I could not only be accountable to what I said I'm doing, but also allow all these other sites to be able to collect data. And with that, I realized I could offer this. This is how Cthulhu was born, because there's a lot of nonprofits that just want to know, in a simplified way, how do we demonstrate our impact? So that's kind of my origin story.
I love it. And the name Cthulhu means?
Yeah, so the name Cthulhu, it's a South African word. It means harvest. And, I really believe it kind of goes with this whole nature theme, but I really believe, as nonprofit executive directors, often I feel like we are just so passionate and we want to go out there and help the world, and we want to show our leaves, we want to just be big and do all that, but we don't stop and nurture our roots. And so we have a really hard time kind of harvesting the fruits of our labor, because we don't pause to get all the things that make us productive, and our systems and our culture and all the foundation that we need to really build a healthy, sustainable nonprofit, so that we can grow and eventually harvest. So that was kind of the theme behind the name.
I love it. That's really fun too. And it makes it easy to tell that story. So, all right, you are a productive executive director, nonprofit leader, professional. What is a day like for you? And how do you know that you're having a productive day?
Yeah, so I love this question, because me knowing that I have a productive day is me being disciplined, is me being intentional, is me having integrity, me doing what I said I was going to do. And I say all of that because I know what it's like to be an unproductive executive director. And I also know what it's like to work for unproductive executive directors, or, have them be my clients. And the ones that I see that are unproductive are all over the place. They're hard to get a hold of. They're a bottleneck for their organization. They're not necessarily reliable. They're saying yes to every opportunity that's thrown at them. And so this kind of focused, disciplined person with integrity that does what they say they're going to do, I know that it seems so like, of course we all have integrity. But that's where I feel like I'm in my productive sweet spot, is when I'm just really intentional with my time and I'm putting it all towards essential, mission critical items.
And people do judge us based on our productivity habits, whether that's fair or unfair. Like you're saying, if we're not responsive because our email inbox is just so overflowing, people are going to judge us and they're going to think negatively about our nonprofit possibly. So our small little actions in terms of everyday productivity actually have a huge implication for the impact of our nonprofits. You mentioned something about, you've worked for bosses or supervisors that weren't as productive as you'd like. And I think we can all relate to that. What's your advice in that situation? Let's say you have a supervisor who's just really disorganized or always late or is like the bottleneck. What should we do?
So boundaries. I actually feel like setting yourself up to not engage in that dynamic, as hard as that sounds, is better. So like we teach people how to treat us. So if we're like, oh, okay, we're just going to wait until the last minute to do anything. And, oh, okay, I'm going to sit around for 3 weeks to wait till you get back to me. And, oh, okay, I'm just going to run things the way that you are. I choose to not enable that behavior. So I choose, where I can go forward without them. I bring it up as a conversation, like, this is really difficult for me to get my job done, and for me to feel valuable here, I need to be able to do my job. So what can we do to take things off your plate? Or, how can we manage this better to free you up? So open and honest communication, but even when that doesn't work, I think some clear boundaries, and for you to look at yourself and saying, how am I playing a role in this dynamic? And how can I not engage in it? Because what I find people do is they complain about it, but they engage in it. And I have a rule that if I'm going to complain about it, I can't engage in it. I cannot answer an email at midnight and say, I can't believe they emailed me at midnight. Well, you respond at midnight. So, you have to have your clear boundaries. And if you're going to complain about it, you can't engage in it.
Fair enough. And that takes some just old-fashioned courage. Let's talk about mission statements. You've got some great new videos out talking about how do you write mission statements that don't suck. And is a mission statement for your own person or for your organization, is that really directly impacting your productivity? Or is it just something that you've got to have and might as well make it the best we can?
No, it's so imperative to have a good mission statement that leads your productivity. So, in that video you're talking about, I'm critical of mission statements that say the services that somebody's offering. So a lot of times we say providing therapy or, giving clothes or something like that, but it doesn't really speak to what you're trying to achieve. So you need to say what you're trying to achieve, because that's going to move people, right? So if you're trying to achieve restored dignity, if you're trying to achieve developing life skills, right? So I'm not offering mentorship or equine assisted learning to kids. Nobody cares. Like, what does mentorship do? What do horses do? But if I say I'm developing life skills for healthy transitions into adulthood, people go, I got it, right? So it needs to communicate what you're trying to achieve, your desired result. But how that impacts productivity is now you're very focused, right? So you're not just focused on the vehicle of how you get there. So you're not just focused on mentorship or equine assisted learning or giving clothes, but you're actually focused on achieving the desired result, which may open you up to other vehicles and strategies to getting there if you find something else is evidence-based. And everybody understands why they're showing up to work, why they're volunteering with you. So you don't get pulled in so many different directions because you're really focused on what you're trying to achieve. And if you have a mission statement that clearly articulates what you're trying to achieve, then you can start measuring how you are achieving that.
Do you get kind of flustered when you see a mission statement that is super long, and is your counsel to make it as brief and succinct as possible?
So I say that I tell people, look at your mission statement and see if there's the words through or by in that mission statement. So usually we say this thing like developing life skills for children in foster care through blah, 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 blah. And you're really just listing all your strategies at that point. And so when you change strategies, you need to go back and change your mission statement. Why can't we just say that we're developing life skills in foster adopted youth, period? And then the through is how we do that. I think that there are some overarching organizations that might work with, pretty broad population of people that may need to have a longer mission statement. But I challenge people to go and look if there's a through and a by, because then you are listing your strategies, and those do not necessarily, or maybe shouldn't be, in a mission statement.
That's great. I wouldn't have thought of that, but you're right. To and through are kind of like flags there. So how about this whole thing about assessment? So that's of your many different skill sets, that's something that really you have a special expertise in. How do we help nonprofits just continually have this mindset of measuring? And what kind of impact does that have on just day-to-day activities for a team?
Yeah. So if you get your mission statement to saying what you're actually trying to achieve, then it's easier to start creating something that you can measure. So if you're developing life skills, then you want to figure out how are you going to measure if people going through your program have increased life skills in some way. And this can be a survey, it can be a pre and post test, we can do interviews. There's a whole bunch of data collection tools you can use to figure out if you're actually doing that. But then when people come to your site, you have on there, 98% of kids were developed life skills in our program. Everything's clear. So there are some implications for productivity on that, which are, you are going to have to figure out how you're tracking and have specific tracking measures in place. And, when are you writing down or giving this survey, or are you tracking how many sessions are done? Or there's a whole bunch of things that you need to think about when you're tracking data. But once you get those processes in place, it should be a well-oiled machine. And what's beautiful about it, I know it sounds like more work up front, but then if you can go and just like look at a spreadsheet or look at a Google Drive or however you have your system set up, and you can always pull that data, you're not like a lot of the nonprofits I know that are like at the end of the year and they're like, wait, we have to come up with an annual report. Let's take the whole month of December or January and figure out what the heck we did last year. And so many nonprofits measure how much. They measure how many units of service. So I would say, if it was my program, I would say that we served 20 kids last year and we're serving 25 kids this year. Who cares? I don't even know if the kids like coming to your place. I don't even know if you're doing anything worthwhile. So if you can have three measures: how much, how well, and is anybody better off? So for me, that might look like, how much is 25 kids signed up for our program? How well did we do it? Maybe how many kids had lesson plans written for them? How many times mentors actually showed up? Like percent of those sessions that we did something right. And then, is anybody better off? That's where you do a survey that says, did we develop dignity? Did we develop life skills? Did we, deliver on the service that we said? And that's your is anybody better off measure. So it's not that difficult, but how it relates to productivity too is when you start getting focused on that, then all of these extra like asks and, hey, do you think you could start this program? And maybe you could do this fundraiser, and maybe you could do this with the kids. If you know, like, well, we collect this data to achieve this outcome, if it's not going to affect that outcome that's in your mission statement, and it doesn't really fit well into that mold, then don't take it on.
great. I like that you're really drawing a thread there from a mission statement to measurement. Like you're saying, how much, how well, and did we impact change? I think that's great. How about for a nonprofit leader in terms of quick wins? We have a lot of people who will be participating in the summit, and some are on the top of their game. You know, they're feeling like they're really productive and they get a lot done and they lead well and they do well on a day-to-day basis. But there's probably a fair number of people in the summit who signed up because they feel out of control. They're exhausted, they're tired, and they feel like a phony. They feel like they look around, everybody else's nonprofit is better and every other ED is doing a better job than they are. What might be some quick wins, especially since we're publishing this in early December? It's kind of a busy time of year, but what would be some quick wins you'd recommend for that exhausted, tired executive director?
Okay, so you probably feel like you're not doing enough, but that's never going to get better. That's the bad news. The good news is you can get better about choosing what you do. So what I tell people to do, because honestly, people hire me to do a strategic plan, but if the culture is one where they take on everything and they're not focused, it doesn't matter how beautiful our plan is. They still go back to their desk on Monday and they engage in all these non-essential activities, and then, oh shoot, remember that plan we did back in December and it hasn't been executed, and then they feel like a failure again. So really, to help you execute your plans better and get quick wins, I would say track everything that you do. Like just have your team do it. If you have more than just you, have your team do this individually. And for a week, just track everything you do. You can use an actual tracking app like Clockify or something, but this is not a compliance activity. Don't make your staff feel scared that you're going to be like, what are you doing with your time? But we just want to know, what are we doing with our time? Because you'll be surprised to see how much you may be spending on things that, like, you know what, it takes me 4 hours to respond to this one volunteer that's extra needy or something. So track it, see what you're doing. And then I have a tool for people where we take that big list of all the things that you do, and we start to see which ones are can we delegate, which ones are mission critical, which ones are strategic, but maybe we don't need to do them right now. We can procrastinate on those a little bit. And then setting up our day like, okay, we are going to do these things because they're mission critical. And why this is so hard to do is because the things that we spend most of our time are the things that are the loudest, right? They are screaming at us to do them right now, so we do them. And then the things that are really mission critical aren't screaming at us. Like, they're the things that we need to like track data for the whole year, and so that you have this nice annual report at the end. So they're easy for us to not do right now. But if we can just see the long game and understand why we're getting focused, I promise you can fix this out of control feeling for yourself.
That sounds good. That sounds good to me. And I think I'm pretty organized, but David Allen says we always want perspective and control, not so much control that we're tightly wound, but we have to have enough control that we can keep those mission critical things moving forward. Rebecca, I'm so grateful for your time, your generosity, and your spirit. You have just such a positive energy that you bring, and I'm sure your clients really love that. I want to make sure you have an opportunity to promote a resource of Cthulhu, and just tell us a little bit more. How can people learn from you and come alongside your organization?
Yes, absolutely. So just like I was talking about how you're going to take inventory, I have a little tool for you guys. If you go over to Cthulhu, and that's KOTULO.com/productive. If you go there, you can get a download that's going to help you put all of the things you do in the categories to figure out if they're mission critical, if there's something you can delegate, get rid of. So that's a tool that you can actually do with your team. You can put it up on a PowerPoint slide and say, we're going to do this, and then remind me about it next month when we are doing a bunch of things that aren't mission critical. So that's something that you can do today at Cthulhu.com/productive. And then I'm on YouTube. So you guys, I just started actually a YouTube channel, and I'm dropping things weekly, and it's just free nonprofit advice for people that just want things broken down in an easy way. And I try to be really relatable and approachable. So you can check me out there. It's Cthulhu Nonprofit Academy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I feel more productive already, and I can't wait to check out those downloads. Thanks again for being our guest.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.